Hey, party people. Welcome to... I feel like I should have a snazzy title, but I don't. Okay, so once upon a time, a while back, a person who calls himself Lady Waffle suggested to me, hey, what if you did product reviews on super cheap art supplies so that broke-ass high school students can also practice their illustration stuff. And they said it nicer than that. I'm just a kind of a vulgar person, but I was like, wow, that's a really great idea. So yeah, I got really excited to do this. So I started researching and I bought all this stuff. And so just a little quick recap in my purchasing decisions. Number one, I bought everything online on Amazon because I wanted to provide things that were easily accessible to lots of people, and Amazon is easily accessible to a lot of people. Okay, and I reviewed a lot. I didn't want to go blind. I didn't want to buy a bunch of crap. I wanted at least to have some basis. So I did seek out well-reviewed markers and color pencils and paints. I tried to keep things as cheap as possible. And there are a few more out there that are like skinny tips and stuff, but I need something that has, it can have a skinny tip, but something that's broad to fill in large areas. So that was another kind of reasoning point for the markers that I chose. I'm going to be testing. I haven't opened any of these yet, so I have no idea what's going to happen. So you're just going to follow along with these reactions with me. I am going to use my stupid expensive, nice marker paper because I feel like that's how you would get the right comparison. Okay, since I've always been using this marker paper, or almost always, like I want to compare it on this paper. I did, however, buy several cheaper papers to try out, and that's going to be a future video where I test out things, both professional grade and student grade, on the cheaper papers. Future video, okay? In case you were wondering, I'm going to be doing a video on color pencils, watercolor pencils, pan watercolors, which are the little dry pans in a palette, and tube watercolors and tube gouaches, and then the papers one. Okay, so I'm going to be doing all of those in this series. Let's open these up. Okay, I'm going to start with the Mr. Sketch. Oh, dang. Oh, ooh, hi. Let's bust out with some marker paper. Okay. Most of you know by now that BM Fang brand marker paper, the right side is on the underside. Whenever I tear out a sheet of marker paper, I mark the wrong side of the paper. It's not like watercolor paper where you can just look at it and you can tell the right side or the wrong side. Well, maybe since this is so different, we'll see how it works here. Wow. It just that's a lot of ink in there. And then dark blue for your shadow color. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. I mean, I guess I can't really judge these by the color shades because this paper gets soggy real quick. Even you saw how lightly I was plopping it down, and it is kind of streaky. The color is super intense. It's not any streakier than your average professional grade marker, because even professional grade markers, you kind of have to go over and work with it so that it's not streaky. But do you see how it ripples because it's so wet? It's a really wet marker. I feel like I want to let it dry before I add my shadow tone. But it doesn't bleed. It just ripples the paper a lot. Here's my darker pink. Ooh, it is not like sitting on top of other colors. It is really, it's not having it. It does not like that at all. So while it's by itself is fine, it does not play well with others. And this is still wet. Oh my gosh, it's so flimsy. Look how wet it is. All right. So this is our Mr. Sketch sample. And I'm going to let that dry before I start applying more colors. Maybe that's the trick. Maybe the trick is to let these colors dry before you start adding more layers. Next, I want to open these Crayolas. This is the second most expensive. These are 35 cents a marker. Oh, dude, come on. So we have these blues and purples and pinks in this box. We have warmer pinks, grays, browns, and a black in this box. Greens and blues in this box. Oranges, yellows, reds, and this random lime green. All right, okay. I kind of like these little boxes. Like you could just put together what you're working with in one of these boxes and just carry one of these around. I feel like doing one of those, those makeup videos, those makeup videos on YouTube where they swatch all 40 colors from a lipstick collection. Like they have 3 million subscribers. And so, Anastasia Beverly Hills sent them the entire lipstick collection. And they make a video with like jazzy music where they swatch everything. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Okay, let's test on the wrong side too, just in case. I mean, on the wrong side, look at how the color just sits on top of the paper. It doesn't get soaked into the paper, and it just looks like a waxy film. But at the same time, when you have the darker colors on the right side, you see this graininess. So again, it applies more smoothly here and grainier on the right side. I like these tips though. It has a nice fine point, but then it has a really broad side to easily fill in large spaces. This one picks up the graphite of the pencil more. The Mr. Sketch really did not pick up the graphite too much, but this works more smoothly on the paper. Okay, the tips work really smoothly. Oh, I guess this is where I tell you guys that I bought all this stuff with my own money and nobody is sponsoring me for my opinions. And sometimes when I'm working with markers, if I want to smooth everything out and soften those edges, I go over everything with the lighter color. Kind of adds a little bit of cohesiveness. But yeah, this is kind of streaky. And now that I'm adding more layers, it's starting to get grainy. This one is golden yellow. Okay, so actually that looks really nice on the right side of the paper. And then there's your light source. So we're gonna put in these shadows. Again, gonna soften the edges by blending a little bit. That's not bad at all. So the lighter colors, they don't really show the grain as much. And so on the right side of the Bien Fang marker paper that I use normally, that looks not bad at all. Okay, it's just a matter of playing with the colors and getting the right shadow colors for your base colors. Let's try some darker colors and see. My hand is running over this orange skirt and the marker is still wet. Just doesn't want to dry. So not bad. As liquidy and as much as it takes forever to dry, okay, it's still wet, it doesn't bleed through. And, you know, with this paper, it's so flimsy that sometimes with my Electrosets and my Copics, if I put in too many layers, it will bleed just a tiny bit. But these don't bleed despite it being wet. And, you know, a lot of these colors, they work out fine. They're a little bit grainy, but they dry less grainy than when I first laid down the color. And I mean, even on the wrong side, it doesn't look too bad. Wow, that texture is weird. Ooh, that's kind of trippy. Okay. My biggest complaint is how so many of these colors, their caps are different colors, they're called different colors, but they're so similar in color when it's on the paper. I don't know what that's all about. So you might have to play around with the shade range. But you know, these are, what are they, 35 cents a marker? So maybe you could splurge for more colors. I only got the 40 set. But I don't know, man. For 35 cents a marker, not bad at all. I especially like how this orange one turned out. So I'm going to say, hey, not bad. And give it time to dry. Watch out for your color choices. Make sure you're constantly testing the colors before you put them down on your final illustration. But I tell you guys that anyway, regardless of what you're doing. So that's not even, you know, a bad thing that you need to be doing. Let's revisit the Mr. Sketch. It's dry now. And okay, so yeah, it dries really grainy on the wrong side. It dries nice and smooth on the right side. Look how vibrant it is. It is still streaky. You know me, I just keep trying until I get what I want. I colored in the base color. I'm gonna wait for this to dry 100% before I go in with my shadow color. I already find that a little bit annoying because for me, when I'm playing with markers, when I'm rendering with markers, one of the number one things is you can move really fast because you don't have to wait around for shit to dry. But that is not the point of this experiment. So we're going to wait for that to dry. We'll see how it goes. Let's visit it in a minute. So let's go with the Sargent Arts markers. And these are skinny, but they have a broad side like those Crayolas, and that's why I picked these up. I thought that I could make use of the two tips. That's the wrong side. Well, that's weird. This cap is darker, but the color is not. All right. I love how these points work. This is very fine, and then this side is very broad, so you can fill in spaces. The colors are pretty nice. Like, that could be a nice shadow color. So again, you're seeing some of that graininess. Let's hope it kind of goes away like the Crayola does. These feel like the Crayolas. They're smooth. They move across the paper really nicely because they're so slick. Okay, that is clearly the wrong color. But these caps, they're so similar in color. I grabbed the wrong one to begin with. And again, these cheaper markers, they deposit a lot of color, a lot of liquid. Oh, don't look at that one. I chose the wrong shadow color, so everything about that looks terrible. But that one doesn't look bad. These colors all look nice and smooth. Again, they're watery, but they don't bleed. Oh, this one bled a little bit, but I did put in a lot of layers accidentally. I really messed that one up. The nice thing about these markers that take so long to dry is that you can actually blend them. Look at that. That looks really cool. Let's see how that dries out. Whew. You know, these professional grade markers, they dry really fast, and that's awesome for working really fast. So I was just thinking like, well, they're so wet, maybe you have time to blend. Look at that. I like that. I like that a lot. I wonder if you could do that with the Crayolas, because they take forever to dry too. I mean, I can do this with the professional grade markers. It's just that with these, there is definitely more wiggle room because of the drying time. That's a nice little perk for the slow to dry business. All right, so these are the Rose Arts. They're the cheapest at 16 cents a marker. This was $7.99 for the kit minus shipping, and but there's 50 in this set. Whoa, that's a lot ashier than the label. Okay, so there's that, and that's on the wrong side. And to be expected, there's that graininess going on. That one is a little bit closer to the actual cap color. Wow, no. I mean, I find that super annoying because it's not even close, you know? And when I'm reaching for markers, when I'm working, what is happening here? How is this label so much darker? I definitely find that annoying because yes, while I'm a big advocate of testing, there comes a certain point where you've had markers for a while, you have certain expectations for what a color is supposed to be, you know. Okay, so that one is pretty close. It's the darkest brown, which turns out to be the darkest brown. So there's that. Okay, so a lot of these colors are actually really pretty. It's just not a lot of them match up with the actual cap color. Ah, that's annoying. These actually draw a tiny bit faster, and so the gradient is a little bit more difficult. I would say these are actually the least streaky out of the batch of 4 that I'm trying out today. That's nice. And then let's put in our shadow colors. And again, we're gonna soften those edges. This one bleeds, you can tell. All right, and that is still wet, so we're gonna let that dry a little bit. But yeah, just like any other brand of marker, you know, you're going to see less streakiness, unevenness with the lighter colors because the contrast with the white of the paper are less evident with lighter colors like yellow and peach. And then, you know, you really want to test how the dark colors look to see how that works. But you see how they layer, okay? It sits on top. That's this green. These colors are really opaque, is what I'm discovering. Because normally, if you have darker colors like this and you put down a lighter color, then it gets kind of absorbed into it. But this light green, this limey green, it's really sitting on the surface. It doesn't blend in with the drier underlayer. It's almost like pigment paints where it just sits on top. That's very interesting and important to think about when you're working with these. And maybe that's why the gradients aren't as nice. Not that they dry faster, but because they aren't blending together, they're pigments that sit on top of each other. Let's revisit the Mr. Sketch. So now this is dry. I'm going to take my darker green. Okay, so if you put the shadow color on top of dry marker, it doesn't do the crazy skipping, catching, scratchy, streaky business. That's just annoying, right? Waiting for these colors to dry. Always clean your nibs, guys. Get rid of the darker stuff. Okay, I just want to try one more thing. I want to see how some of these play together, especially the Sargents and the Rose. Okay, that's the Rose Art underlayer with a Sargent shadow. That sounds like a ridiculous evil villain in a superhero movie. Sargent Shadow. And let's wait for and see how that dries. And then let's do one where the Sargent is the base color and the Rose Art is the shadow color. And I'm gonna soften those edges up a little bit and let that dry. Now, I already hate that. I don't think that the Rose Art and the Sargent Art play well together. Okay. There's something about the pigments. I actually think that the Rose Art kind of stand alone. Like they don't like, that looks so weird to me. I don't like that. I actually think that maybe the Crayola and the Sargent are going to play okay together because of the way they behave in my tests. Okay, so I'm gonna go with this one. No, these cap colors make me crazy. Okay, let's see how that dries. That looks pretty nice. All right, final test, of course, will be when everything dries, but it seems to me that the Crayolas and the Sargents play way better together than the Rose Art with the Sargent. I mean, look at that. Oh, what is happening there? Oh, I don't even know. I don't even know. Do I want to know? Probably not. Probably not. So what have we learned? We have learned that sometimes the past needs to stay in the past. That was fun going down memory lane with the Mr. Sketch, but I'm probably going to give them away to one of my friends who has kids. The Rose Art does funny things when layered. And so if you're an illustrator who never layers their colors, go ahead and use the Rose Art. But the pigmentation's weak. The cap colors make me crazy. And with how they do not match the marker color, sometimes not even remotely close. And the way the pigments sit on each other is very ugly. My vote is for the Sargent Art. These. Okay. The set I got was $5.49 for 30 markers. That makes it about 18 cents a marker. I don't know if they have larger sets than this, but yeah, I think this was a good buy. I think that I made those mistakes, but look how nice these look once I got the hang of how to use these. And the colors are nice. The cap colors, yeah, there's a problem. But I think that the quality is nice enough for this price range, for the student grade, that I would be willing to put up with it. My second choice is actually the Crayolas. I mean, that looks nice, right? I think that looks pretty nice. You know, these colors are really vibrant. Their red is kind of sad. Their red is a little bit sad too. But the colors are nice. You know, it's a little bit on the streaky side, but I think you can work with it. The Sargents are much less streaky. The Sargents and the Crayolas, they work decently together. Look at that one, okay? You know, they don't work together as effortlessly as the professional grade. Like, if you watched my tour, my workspace video, you know that I have all these brands mixed together and I have them sorted by color. And my Copics work with my Prismacolors, and they work with my Marby Le Plumes, and they work with my Lettre sets. And I don't worry about that sort of thing. But with these cheaper quality, with strange ingredients, you know, they don't all like to play together. So my vote is for the Sargent, followed by the Crayola. Okay, but you know, Crayola is 35 cents a marker, so why would you buy the more expensive one? You know, I mean, these Sargents, they have a nice tip, their colors are nice, the caps don't make me as crazy as some of the others, they have a nice color range. All right, so those are just some of my opinions on these cheaper brands of markers. If you have a brand of cheap marker that you think are totally bomb and I need to try them, drop me a comment. If you have any questions about these markers, again, drop me a comment. And yeah, I'm going to test out the Sargents and the Crayolas on cheaper papers later on in a future video, so you can see how that all plays out together. I mean, right now, the Bienfang that I use is, you know, according to Amazon, is $9.97 for 50 sheets. So that makes it about 20 cents a sheet. And I have some of these other papers that are like 7 and 14 cents a sheet. So the gap isn't as big as with the markers. Okay, so it may turn out that you buy a little bit more expensive paper and get good results. We'll see. We'll see. I hope this video helped you make some smart buying decisions in the future. You know, give me a thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Please share with your friends who want to draw but think that they can't afford it, that they need super expensive stuff to get started. You absolutely do not. I spent all up until college using student grade stuff, and even in college I really couldn't afford the most expensive stuff. So yeah, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already for alerts in the cheap art supply product review series. And yeah, I will see you next time.